Tonight, we take a look at the latest episode of Picard Season 3, then we take a look at the latest episode of Mandalorian, and we'll take a look back at Master and Commander 20 years later. All this coming up right now on The Writer Brothers. And welcome back to the best place to be on Tuesday night on YouTube. I am, of course, your host, Petey York, joined, as always, by the lovely Mr. Corione Witch in Residence. Slightly more lovely than Miss H. Marie, and considerably less lovely than both of them and even myself, Mr. Pollo Zapatos. How is everybody doing tonight? We got a lot to discuss, of course, and boy, where do we even begin? But let's go quickly around the room. How's everyone feeling tonight?
Doing okay, though that's the last time I make any deals with Ursula the Sea Witch.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you know, looking back at that particular movie, it's like, did Ariel really get conned? No, she just closed her eyes and signed the contract. That doesn't count as being reluctant. No, you committed to your deal, and I guess as you learned, well, you only have yourself to blame for agreeing to the contract in the end, so.
Yeah, I should have gotten more than a cheese sandwich. But,
yeah. You know, hard lesson learned is a hard lesson learned there. John, what about you? How has life kicked you in the balls this week?
Oh, you know, it did. We'll leave it at that.
Same old, you know, life's gentle nut tapping. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And of course, to round it off, H. Marie, how you doing tonight? You ready to talk pop culture?
Oh yeah, because there's definitely some interesting things going on.
There is. Just breaking within a few hours before our show. And I really like it when news actually lines up with with our show. Because on the one hand, I'm like, ooh, maybe I should text all the guys and we do a quick special to talk about this news. And I'm like, or, hear myself out here. We wait until Tuesday. And we've stuck to waiting until Tuesday with every single thing. Even when people want us to do live reactions right on the show, I decided to compromise and give you little 60-second blurbs. But we're still doing the full reviews on Tuesday, because that's what we do this show for, Tuesday.
You know, PD, I love it when you have both sides of the conversation. It saves me so much work.
And you kind of need it right now, too. Since you are recovering from bad deals with sea witches. Late breaking news is this blank white screen here.
Hold on.
We'll wait for that to get readjusted. If you haven't heard just yet, Allegedly, I mean, it's not really for sure confirmed, but it does sound like it might be that Paramount's probably letting this one soft leak to the world, that a Galaxy Quest TV series might be in the works. Now, if the Orville didn't exist, I would probably be as ecstatic for this as I was watching episode 9 of season 3 of Picard, but the Orville does exist, and so I guess on the one hand, there's one way that I think you could do this show right, and that is to have you stick with the convention theme, right? The whole fact that it's real life, and you basically take the episodes of Discovery season 2 on, and you sort of, have like reiterated versions of the Galaxy Quest crew doing that. And then you have the fandom at war with itself over why, the new Galaxy Quest or New Galaxy or whatever we could call it, similar to New Trek, is either really good or really bad. And so it basically becomes a meta show of Star Trek being about the fans arguing why the new Galaxy Quest is amazing or why it's bad. Other than that, I don't really know what the point of this show is. Are we going to keep it real or are we going to keep it fictional? John, what do you think?
I honestly, I do hear that like it's kind of the Orville, but it's actually my favorite version of all of them because it's humans of today going on a wacky Narnia adventure. And so like that would be fun to see again. I really like the isekai Japanese storytelling where it's just a human that you could meet any day of the week goes to somewhere else, and in that new world everything's wrong. And so I like that Galaxy Quest has left room somewhat to be like same cast of characters and an actually fun TV show that is about that, like, live action Rick and Morty. It could very easily go in that kind of direction, or it could go in the direction you're saying where it's more of like a first contact experience. But I think if it's going to be that, it has to be something more along the lines of like how the Men in Black started. I feel like that would be a very fun story to follow along with.
Yeah.
Also, Paramount, if you're still in development, super down to write for this one. I love Galaxy Quest. I actually just watched it really recently, and it was so fun.
Oh, it's considered by some to be the best Star Trek film, and I mean, in a lot of ways, I have to agree. Skogliotin writes in, my gut tells me they're going to go straight for the OG TV show and not have it be meta. That's very possible. Is it going to be
I think that would be a mistake.
Yeah, huge mistake.
But, yeah, possible.
Well, it depends on how, because then the other siding of it is this could basically be, like I said, okay, yes, the movie happened, right? So this is a continuation of the movie, all these many years later, 20 plus years at this point, or no, 99. I'm doing math bad today. Over 10 years since we had last seen the movie. So I'm thinking that if you do a continuation, you should, I don't know, it's going to be hard not to basically have Earth brought into whatever the Thermians, or the did I get that right? Was that the aliens?
I think so.
Yeah. Whether or not the aliens do end up deciding to form their own federation, and then they come back to Earth and go, hey, we saw the new historical documents, the show's not as good as it used to be, but we've decided that you guys, should be a part of our new, not the Federation. And so you could take it in that direction of like, okay, yeah, they'll come back and then they'll just decide to, bring Earth into the fold, and then it could turn out that they've actually gone bad and they're just starting to enslave worlds or something. I mean, there's any number of directions you could go with this. It's like what has me interested, why I think I'm hopeful for it being successful is one of the original producers is already working on it as an executive producer. And they are currently searching for writers, which, hey, wouldn't mind giving it a try. Yeah.
Also, we would be remiss if we did not remind everyone that Cameron Pasha is a working writer in Hollywood, is very reasonable, and, is fantastic at this sort of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, Cameron Cameron should pretty much be brought on as showrunner at this point. I mean, if we wanted to do our hypothetical Star Trek, well, here's another potential route to go, and I feel I could take the keys of Galaxy Quest and make it something that the fans would enjoy. At least I'd try to. That'd be one of my goals. Maybe not. I mean, obviously...
I'd definitely make sure you did.
Yeah, no, plot, characters, then nostalgia. That's in that order is what we'd go with there for our hypothetical Galaxy Class TV show. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's weird that Paramount would be the one producing it, and a spoof of their own IP of Star Trek. But I mean, Star Trek in a lot of ways, some would argue, has become a parody of itself, especially if you consider Lower Decks. And yeah, it's like, okay, we have an original producer on it, so that tells me that it's headed in the right direction. Now I think at this point it's going to depend on who's going to be showrunner, who's going to write it, and I think that's pretty much where we're at with this. I mean, this honestly just feels like they're throwing it out there to see if people would even have an interest in watching it.
Yeah, I mean, this has all the feels of a trial balloon. Although I personally think that the Orville was a perfect trial balloon for exactly this. So you know it will make money. The key here is how you go about doing this. The way I would go about it would be I would set it as, now that everybody knows Galaxy Quest is real, set it 20 years later so you don't have to try to resurrect Alan Rickman. And you set it up as, we've taken the technology that we got from the Galaxy Quest ship, and we're actually making this mojo fly. And we are now kind of starting do it as like a Birth of the Federation Galaxy Quest. Where we're still humans, we're still making stupid mistakes. We're flying out in the galaxy, and everyone goes, wait a minute, that goofy TV show is real, right? There could be some fun with it there. That being said, I feel like they got beat to the punch with the Orville. So I don't know how this is going to go. I would say that if they don't make Alex Kurtzman the villain of the first season, they are totally missing out on an opportunity. And yeah.
That's why I think that's probably the direction they're going to go, is just kind of have it be a sort of meta parody, just because they can do the whole, they can have those conversations about Star Trek more directly and its failures, if they're wanting Star Trek to continue to improve and succeed like we've seen in season 3, or we'll see. Scogli writes in and says it's going to be like Buzz Lightyear thing, that this is that TV show.
If they do that, they might as well forget the whole Enterprise. Pun intended.
I don't know. The Orville is kind of in its own sort of state of limbo, in that it could go either way. I mean, if we had only had seasons 1 and 2 of the Orville Corione, I'd agree, but season 3 was such a move from what we had seen in season 1 and 2 that the show was kind of starting to get more mature and be that sort of somewhat stoic TNG, but also its own thing entirely.
Oh yeah, no. It put on, instead of Riker's beard, it was Bortus's mustache, right?
Right.
I mean, like it. It came together, and it did so just right, and it became less about parodying Trek and more about being a loving homage to Trek. So, yeah.
Well, and I don't even think Galaxy Quest is a parody, and I think we use the term parody in a negative or like a pejorative context, mostly because it's like it's supposed to be making fun of something, but in reality, like, parody is just the legal way of taking the main mechanics, right? Like,
don't get me wrong.
I think that's where
loving comedic version of Trek. That's what I mean by when I say parody.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think you're saying it negative either, but I also don't think it's like I don't think it's such this has to be funny or like the same basic thing in terms of like taking the mechanics. I think Galaxy Quest cheated in its way that the mechanics were given to the show, given to the crew, and then they were asked to do what they said they were doing, which is act like leaders and act like crewmen of this ship in a once in a lifetime and also like you're gonna die possibly chance. And it worked out for them. So like that's why to me I think it would be much nicer if they stayed in that same like time period and it wasn't focused on conquering the galaxy or even like exploring the galaxy yet. Like it would be nice to see it more in that like trying to just figure out how to protect Earth with only one ship. And also not Independence Day. Let's take all of those things. Let's take it worked, and then let's go the next step that hasn't been seen yet. And I really think, especially with all the source material under Paramount's wing, like they could really hit this out of the park if they actually take the time to study where everybody's already gone, like space, the final frontier. Except we all keep going down the Oregon Trail. Like, let's find something new, guys. Let's not go with the exploration. Let's not go with a new alien every episode. Let's try an actual like heist of protecting Earth season. Let's try something new.
Yeah,
that's my big goal.
Well, I mean, we'll see. It's just, I think, like I said, I think this is one of those, well, let's just see what people react to, because they've already, I mean, we could even include Star Wars in this, too. They've already said that Starfleet Academy is already set to go, which just sounds like Discovery Season 6, so we're passing on that one on this show. Unless, some of the other panelists really want to take a look at it. Corione, you want to watch Discovery Season 6?
Depends. Are you willing to cover my therapy bill? No. Then no.
Thank the Lord.
And I would definitely need Depends probably watching that season 2 or that show. H. Marie, what about you? You ready to watch Starfleet Academy?
I don't know.
And Pollo Zapato says, did Picard Season 3 win you over enough to want to return to the 32nd century Kurtzman era timeline Trek crap?
Oh, dude, I'm going to give it a shot if I'm, like, really out of stuff, and I'll let you know if it worked out, but, like, it's going to be, I need something in the background. Like, I do like watching the new stuff. I love the graphics. Like, some of these, like, scenic shots that they're doing are just killing it for me. I love it.
I think you're getting confused with Star Wars.
Oh, no, all of it. Like, that's the reason why I'm, like, even giving any of these a shot. For me personally, has always been like, I love sci-fi. I want to see where we're at. I want to see what they do. And I get really disappointed. Some of these are like, let's just do the worst, sandiest place we can find every episode. And it's like, okay, guys, like, we all know sand is real. And we know Anakin hates it, and now so do I. So, like, let's find something new. Like that. It's the same thing with Galaxy Quest. It's the same thing with all of this stuff. It's like, guys, I saw it all too when we were kids. Like, we're like, Parker, I think you'll get this one for sure. But like everybody who just got out of boot camp telling their boot camp stories, and then when you ask them to tell a different story, it's their high school story. Like everybody who just got out of college is telling their college story, and everybody who just got into college is telling their high school stories. And everybody that's getting into the film industry is telling the same films we've already seen.
Yeah, like, it's like...
grow up.
Yeah, it's like, you ever notice how most of the planets in Trek look like national parks in LA? And most of the planets in Stargate look like the rainforests in BC?
Well, there's other exciting Star Trek news, guys, before we move into Picard Season 3. Section 31, the TV series, has now been downgraded to a TV movie, but Michelle Yeoh's coming back. Yay? Anyone? Anyway, real quick, Eddie Arndt writes in, hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Well, we are talking about whether or not we want to give ourselves eye and brain cancer watching Discovery Season 6 and the Section 31 movie. Corione, are you excited for the Section 31 movie?
That depends. Do I get to sit down with 2 robots and MST3K it?
Okay,
If
that would
so-
actually be fun, and we might have to do something like that live or in, yeah.
Yeah, see?
Oh,
Damn.
If you give me 2 robots and, like, we make a joke out of, like, no, this is punishment for some horrible thing you've done.
dude,
Or, like, the gods will grant me some sort of massive karmic pass for doing this. Like, if I do this and the gods will let me murder someone, then maybe.
Well, I don't know about the murdering somebody part, but
got a chicken and a Jedi. Let's do this.
I don't know, a live watch and reaction to MST3K style.
Oh, dude, a live commentary. I live for that. It's my favorite way to watch movies
You
nowadays.
see what I'm
Well,
saying?
here's the catch, though. Here's the catch. We'd have to decide. Would we want to make it authentically live? Meaning, are you feeling secure enough that if your joke sounds funnier in your head and you say it out loud and end up getting booed for it, can you handle that kind of rejection? I can, because I don't give a shit. But can you guys?
My jokes
Oh, yeah.
land in the theater,
Okay.
even when I like say "oops." People are like, "That's not how you say it."
Oh yeah, no, I got a whole theater roaring of like 7 people, but it was a whole theater of people roaring when I went and saw Superman Returns and the plane goes down behind the rocks and I just loudly went everyone lost their shit.
I got a theater roaring because like it was in the middle of John Wick. It was like during one of those like sneak scenes. I spilled my drink, and I just was like, balls, really loud. Right as somebody got shot, and just everything changed for the theater. It was one of the greatest moments in my life. I also got a theater to audibly gasp when I laughed during Smile. Somebody died a funny way to me, and it just made me laugh really hard. And like the theater was like,
I always hate when I forget to open my candy before the movie starts. Because every time I get a craving for my candy, here I go pulling it out of my pocket, it's loud and actiony, right? And then I get ready to open, quiet scene. Oops. Every time. So
drinks, because almost every time it's a can, and those aren't allowed in.
I mean, if we're gonna start doing MST3K style live watches and reactions for bad television, then we might end up watching Discovery Season 6 after all. We might even have to warm up by going back to Discovery and doing that. Oh, man. Corione. But at the same time, this could really be what the channel needs to stand out. Like, I know people are doing live watches and reactions, but we're intentionally going in to make fun of it and ad-lib, so... Skoglioten writes in, me and my buddy laughed when Whitey Bulger strangled the hooker and the theater gasped. Actually, that was me with Joker. When he shot De Niro, I was the only one that laughed out loud. And it was a bit awkward, but I was like, it's De Niro getting shot. Come on. We knew it was coming. If you didn't know that was going to happen, what were you asleep the whole movie? I don't know. Eddie Arndt follows up, I agree with Skogli. I might have to give it a quick peek, but we will see. Honestly, I only have seen 3 minutes of Discovery in my life, and I turned it off and never went back. I think I must have missed.
I envy you. I envy you so very badly.
Yeah, I mean, the first season was all right for a first season of Star Trek. It definitely fooled me with the twists and turns, but man, that second season, without Anson Mount, there wouldn't be a Strange New Worlds, and Discovery probably would have been canceled after season 4.
Yeah.
Anson Mount definitely is. I mean, he probably wouldn't say it,
that series.
but he is the only reason that Discovery even stayed on, and of course, he's the reason that we have Strange New Worlds, which, hey, we got season 2 in June, and I
wasn't invited to write on it.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, season 1 had its moments. That first episode was very much in line with Roddenberry Trek. I mean, the idea behind it was very true to to solidifying lasting peace using debate and idea exchange. So,
well, I think it's the same. Like, I think it's just this general hang up with the switching to streaming services. It's like you got too many people trying to just make a new way, and then you got too many people trying to keep the old way, and like we all just got to figure out what we're doing. Like, somebody has to just take charge and say, hey, we're doing a 10-week, 10-episode drop, 1 episode a week. That's what you're writing to. Remember to account for the white space.
Yep. So,
like, let's organize.
I'm just gonna list off a couple of things real quick. One, not at all excited for, and I'm gonna throw Disney in here since we are talking Star Wars on tonight's show anyway. One, I do not care for the Rey movie. I'm not watching anything that involves the sequel trilogy. That's why Ahsoka's pretty much my final Alamo at this point with Star Wars. Because the Veil of the Force is in play, anything, and I mean anything, and I mean all theories at this point are allowed. Like, I'm pretty sure that this Balin dude is Anakin from another timeline. Like, the lightsaber hilt and even the color matches the original poster. Those are the kinds of Easter egg bullshits that Favreau prides himself on doing, and same with Filoni. And so I do think that is an alternate universe Anakin. I even think that the Padawan that he's with could even be Lana Beniko from SWTOR. Could be.
Okay. You really need to read the
Heir to the Empire.
Heir to the Empire, because those two characters map to characters from Heir to the Empire.
Interesting. So, I don't know. With the Veil of the Force, we could even see the Avengers coming through into the Star Wars universe. We just don't know. With time travel, interdimensionality, and the fact that the Veil of the Force seems to suggest that there's any number of, we've entered the realm of anything could happen. They could find a way to keep KK's timeline preserved and still go on, and yet still go back to the original Heir to the Empire timeline, or a new version of that timeline and start over. I don't know. But I'm willing to give that show one more shot, even though Mandalorian has just basically got me back into my Kenobi apathy, which sucks because I hated feeling the way I did after Kenobi. Just so empty and not caring anymore.
Okay, I feel like Mandalorian is being butchered by all the like noise that's around it. Because like I don't listen to that noise on any other day except for like when I'm actually intentionally listening to like updates in popular culture, or like, you know, here on the show.
Yeah.
Like when I'm watching Mandalorian, I'm actually still having a pretty good time. I didn't like this episode mostly because it took a turn that I don't like it.
Well, we'll get into the specifics when we get there.
Yeah.
I was just going to say Mandalorian is so bad to the point where it almost seems like Favreau just stepped back, because KK, as has been pointed out even on this show by Corione, KK did swoop in and take credit for the success of the first season. Now, think about this from a tactical perspective. She swoops in to hijack season 3. What's the smart move to do? Fight her on it, or let her just go nuts with it and then say, here you go, KK. Take credit for season 3. It's bad. It's losing the ratings, but you did this, right? You were the success behind season 1. Now you have to take credit for season 3 as well as Indy 5, and it just adds to all the more reasons as to why she should be fucking fired at this point. Fuck!
Yeah.
How many times do we have to figure out how much she is horrible? How much more shit is she gonna ruin before you figure it out?
It's salaries. Like, the people that deserve salaries are the people that show up every day to the set to do the actual jobs that need getting done every single day, regardless of the
Those
film.
people still get my praise regardless of if the product is good or bad.
That's what I mean. But the people that actually do get salaries are the KKs who legitimately just do their best to put their name on something. Like, it's literally just this branding competition, and like all we're getting is burnt, like everything's burnt. The whole cow is on fire. The farm burned down a month ago. Everybody's like goals for a future where like Star Wars was good is burned. And why? Because KK needed her stamp on it, because like according to Disney's projections, she's the one to save the Empire. And it's like, what is going on? Stop betting on people. bet on ideas that the people have and then use those ideas to help them when they get crazy like this. Be like, look, didn't you want to make a show that was revolutionary to the Star Wars story, a female Jedi doing this thing instead of the male Jedi? Like, focus on that and write a good one. Don't try to ruin everybody else's parade on your way to the finish line, because those are your audience. Like, that's your money, and you're losing it hand over fist for pride, ego, and there's no other explanation.
Guys,
and board of directors direct.
Oh, say again.
Guys,
I can hear you say
there
guys.
are some pieces that do need to be commented on, though. Okay, can you get me now? Okay,
Coming in loud and clear.
The Nielsen ratings for streaming came out. Okay, the Nielsen ratings for streaming came out today. Mandalorian is still the #1 streaming show on air right now, so that's worth remembering. So when people are saying, people are flocking away from Mandalorian, no, they're flocking away from streaming. Okay? So that's one to keep track of. 2, if you think about it this way, when certain characters are removed from the series, there are alternative reasons why that could be the reason. And I can go into them when we get into the more spoiler parts of Mando. But I'm also going to say this. I have a very different take on this last episode than you guys did. I know, I'm probably about to lose all the street cred I've ever accrued, half a point of it. But I actually liked this episode of Mando, and I can't wait to go through why.
We'll definitely.
I'm mad at this episode because of the way it ended and my problem with not being allowed to binge it.
My issues with this are not the episode itself, but the So Skoglioten writes in, says she's got a mean list of some nasty dirt. It's the only explanation, which I have said before and I'll reiterate now. If that's the case, she is just as horrible a person as the people who do some of the horrible stuff. If it's linked to the certain island of a guy who did not kill himself, then she is just as disgusting a person. She's subhuman garbage for not bringing people to justice with that information. I mean, that's what that comes down to.
She did hire Leslie Headland, the heir apparent to the biggest monster in Hollywood. Just saying.
Interesting. Scogli follows up, Jon Favreau killed off his own character that he voices by those red douchebags from sequels. I probably should have saved reading that for the next spoiler portion, but I don't think people come here to listen to us talk about Mando as much as they do Star Trek, which means it's time to head out to the final frontier and discuss the latest episode. Real quick, of course. We got to go to Picard lighting. And, alright, I'll go first, of course. If you caught my initial reaction, you know that I really enjoyed this episode. I've really enjoyed this series so far. I like it a lot. No, it is not classic TOS Star Trek. I think that we could maybe get to a show something like that in the future. I would definitely like to see that return. But it's certainly not going to come from Kurtzman, as we know. And, I have zero faith. I don't care if Kurtzman wants to slap his name on something and cash a check. Otherwise, put proper showrunners like Terry Matalas, put Cameron Pasha in charge of a Star Trek show, and then just stay away from it. That's my advice, plain and simple. Otherwise, anything where Kurtzman's running the show, I'm not showing up. Unless we're going to make fun of it. And if we do make fun of it, we are not playing nice. All the jokes will be had, all of it. Probably some stuff that we'll end up regretting and getting canceled for, but whatever. We're here to have fun in the end, and that's really kind of why we started this, was to have fun, not pretend to get along with people. But yes, I love this. So, Corion, why don't you go ahead and go real quick with your non-spoiler reaction. And Scogli, if you want to type your non-spoiler reaction, go right ahead and I'll read it off.
Okay, I in order to reply to this episode, I really need to spoil. But the long and short of it is, the plan between all the enemies of the Federation has come to fruition. The bad guys have made it as dark as possible, and our good team is now riding in to not only save the Federation but their kids, their progeny. And really, when you think about it, yes, they're saving their kids, but really isn't modern Starfleet all their kids anyway? So yeah, they're riding in. They got the everything they could possibly imagine put together to get everything as back into play as possible. But it turns out the changelings had a plan. It's been revealed it's far more sinister than anyone ever thought it could be. It involves bringing back enemies that we haven't seen for quite some time. Probably the biggest threat the Federation has ever faced. Next to a competent Q. It's who's going to save the Federation? A ship full of, the USS Retirement Home. And, I think that's what I can say about it. I found this plot of this episode to have been borrowed from 4 or 5 different other science fiction series that I am very well versed in. So when I started making the connections and started realizing what they were doing, it annoyed the hell out of me that they would try to steal that particular storyline. And given that I know that Terry Metalis happens to be a Warhammer 40k player, it all kind of came together for me. And I went, oh, so that's what we're doing now. Okay, now all the grim dark lighting suddenly makes a lot of sense, because I've decided that we're now in a Warhammer 40k Star Trek mashup. And if they had said that from the beginning, I'd be all for it and be like, oh, okay, yeah, this totally makes sense then. And I'd be like, hell, if they had told me that from the beginning, I probably would have gotten my little Space Marine figures out and had them pew-pewing at Picard, and it would have been great. But, that's where it's at for me. But you guys, please, go ahead. Share the love.
It's funny, the way you describe it is actually like the way it made me feel at the end. I'm really annoyed now how many shows really are banking on game theory for their inspiration, and just taking games that were in some cases built from watching these shows. A lot of this kind of stuff, it's for me, this episode really felt like a wash, because the stakes just went to 11 again. There's that whole idea of going to 11 and this is a crazy adventure, but if every adventure is 11, from the fact that the first ship that they encounter is an 11 to the last ship that they encounter is an 11, it's okay, all right. Even your filler episodes are trying to make things 11, and it's that's not, it's the same as being electrocuted. A little tingle and you're oh wow, great to be alive. 4 hours of the same tingle and you're guys, please, this doesn't feel good, I'm shaking.
For the record, if you have a tingle for 4 hours, please consult a doctor.
You're too young to be taking pills that give you a tingle for 4 hours, bro.
The idea is the same though.
Could be a war wound, we shouldn't judge.
Fair.
The thing to me though, more than anything, is that the fact that these people have all the money, all of the experience, and all of the associations. Most people by now have learned that it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. If you know a guy, you're more likely to get the job you want than if you know how to do the job. And that's more than apparent in Hollywood. It is so obvious. Look at all of these train wrecks from everyone, just taking things that were legitimately risky endeavors and then just running them right into that risky endeavor. on purpose to some degree. Like, this episode to me is so much of all of these uneducated best friends getting in charge and then all doing a bunch of coke and going, all right, let's see. Gangsters. All right, not gangsters because they're actually terrorists. Not terrorists because they're actually AI. Awesome, guys. You just did literally all of Call of Duty and like Terminator. And the people that are supposed to solve it are 1,000. And I thought this was more of a send-off season than like episode 2 of Lord of the Rings. Like, this really feels like a Helm's Deep season rather than a like Return of the King season. This is
There's
not
a reason for that.
hard. This is, but you're milking a 90-year-old. You know, he
wants to be milked.
Yeah, that's fair. But also, like, you're milking it, like, you're giving him the prime of his CGI career. And it's like, this is the guy that can do Macbeth like no other. Like, even, like, man, what was his name that just did Macbeth?
Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington. Like, he was a very, very close second, but still Sir Patrick Stewart is Sir Patrick Stewart. And, like, you're trying to get him to be closer to Seth MacFarlane's Captain. Like, it's embarrassing. He's supposed to be the noble warrior, and he is the least listened to person in the whole season. And it's like, where did any of his cred go? And they use the excuse, well, like, you know, you're kind of a hotshot, and like, we don't like Mavericks. And it's like, yes, we do. Everybody, if you meet your least favorite actor, you're still gonna brag about how you met an actor, you know? So like, yeah, but you also like make a dedicated choice not to ever put people above what their station is and no pedestals. But like, that's a goal, not necessarily everybody's like boot camp story, you know? And that's what I mean, is like meeting heroes, meeting people that are important, when you're in their presence, whether you want to be tough or not, you're still going to be like, damn.
Yeah.
Kind of earned it.
Yeah. So Skogly writes in, I'm going to read these out of order real quick. Says, I've been ravenously absorbing Warhammer lore for about a week now, and it's bloody amazing. So probably a little shout out to Corey on there. And then Skogly says, this episode filled me with campy joy. I don't care if they shouldn't trust Data. He needs to be there. I'm on board for it. I don't care if it's silly. This is fan service for me. There's a big difference between member berries, bait and switches, which did not happen here, and fan service, which is what we have here, and I appreciate it. That's kind of where I'm at personally, but we'll get into it more with spoilers. H. Marie, what was your initial reaction?
I waited too long. I can't quite remember.
You can't quite remember how excited you were for this episode?
No, because unfortunately Mandalorian just hasn't kept my attention.
We're talking about Picard.
Oh, wait. When did you guys switch on me?
Oh, we got into it. We got into it with Mandalorian on the pop culture news portion. But no, the order is Picard, Mando, Master, and Commander.
Oh, thank you. As you can see, my 3 days off have done my brain well and made it a little too relaxed. Picard, no, I'm actually excited to see what's coming in the next episode, because this last episode really just, I squealed. There were a lot of happy scenes in it for me.
Yeah. So with that, we will go ahead and set spoiler alert. And I'm turning my lights back on, because they ended up with the ship that had all the lights on.
That actually has bridge lighting. Yeah.
I know. And you know, it's, you know what, Corion, I want you to go first, and then we will try to go work back from there. Or what's up? Go ahead.
I have two things. One, it would have been so much better if Picard, instead of saying I missed the carpet, said I missed the lights. That would have just really cemented some,
yeah,
like,
but then Riker, being the jerk he is, would have been like, what, all 5 of them? And then it would have been on.
Fair.
And
But
we would
also,
have had an old man fight on the bridge. It would have been great.
it would have been terrible. Both of them would have broke a hip on the first swing. But no, I think Hannah is a perfect example of my a failure in my judgment about the episode about turning it up to 11. The fact that like somebody who is enjoying it is still wholly enjoying it, and Scogli as well. Like both saying that like, no, I know that it's fan service, but it's still good. It's not disrespectful yet. Like to me, I'm actually like, yeah, it's good fan service, but now let's focus on the writing. So like, I am glad that it is working. I'm glad that there are people that are still enjoying it, but also still better writing, guys.
Okay, so in order for me to explain this, before I talk Picard, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background. In the Warhammer 40k universe, there is a alien insectoid species called the Tyranids. As a member of the Tyranids, they are all a collective hive mind species. There is a special offshoot, though, of the Tyranids called Gene Stealers. Now, what do Gene Stealers do? Well, I'm glad you asked. They drop one of their species on a planet. They manipulate the genes of an individual on the planet so that the gene virus bomb of the Gene Stealers is implanted in it so that subsequent generations are effectively a sleeper unit for the Tyranids. So when there is a sufficient enough mass of these Gene Stealer, human hybrids, a massive psychic call is put out to the hive. The hive then shows up, and this species and the Gene Stealers, who have all been bred with this gene bomb in them, activate and become a fifth column on the species planet. Usually, since they're all encouraged to join the Imperial military, they wind up being the Imperial Defense Forces that are supposed to stop a Tyranid invasion, but instead they become the force that helps the Tyranids take over the planet. Does this sound familiar at all? Because this is the plot that has been happening. Okay? And when I saw that, and when I realized what was going on, it completely dropped me out of the episode, and I went, they just ripped off the biggest wargaming franchise in the history of wargaming franchises. And they expect the nostalgia of putting the Enterprise D, which is a 40-year out-of-date ship, against the entire top-of-the-line fleet. But because it's these fogies on the USS, retirement home, they're gonna somehow pull this off? Nah, I'm sorry, it dropped me out. Don't get me wrong, I loved seeing the D like everybody else, and in its 4K glory, hey, the D looks great. The ship looks great. Hell, I'd even agree with Picard, the carpet looks great. But if you put the USS Retirement Castle versus the Nimitz, I'm sorry, the Nimitz is going to win. Okay? And that's one ship. Also, the Enterprise D had a crew complement of 1,014 was the average that they quoted again and again and again. 8 dudes are gonna run this ship and be just fine.
And why are they taking the whole thing?
Yeah, additionally, why do they need the saucer section when the battle mode or battle bridge is really all they're gonna need? Because let's be honest, they're not going to win this with a polite debate over Earl Grey tea.
Yeah, not only that, but like
right,
the battle bridge.
This is gonna get serious.
Oh, unfortunately, it looks
so
like
it completely dropped. I believe I sent PP. Try this, and unfortunately, I had mentioned this to PD immediately upon seeing this episode, and I felt bad doing that to you. because honestly, dude, you seem so excited and so hopeful for this episode, and it just filled me with so much the writing's gone to shit dread again that it dropped me right out of any joy
I think
that was hoping to come through.
Yeah, so I think what the issue is so the reason why it didn't bother me is because I have no idea anything of what you just said to do with anything. This is the first time I'm hearing of this kind of plot. Now, the way it works, the way that it's been applied, so even if he did borrow from Warhammer 40k on this for the inspiration, first of all, I'm not really one to be in an accusatory position of borrowing story elements. I'm a writer in the year 2023. Most stories have been done at this point. What it really is as a writer, what we do in the modern age is we come up with original characters, and that's it. Plot elements, plot devices, it's really how we decide to piece them together and try to have our story make sense to carry out in whatever fashion that we can. That's probably why serialized television has gotten so popular, is because people can actually walk out basic plots that, you would typically expect packaged in a 45-minute episode pertaining to Star Trek. At the same time, it's not so much about padding runtime on a story as much as it gives opportunity to actually get more character development beyond, here's 5 minutes of screen time with Counselor Troy, and now she's going to be a commander taking the command stuff, and we'll just never go back to do that again, because this is episodic TV. No, I think what it is at this point is we kind of we take concepts and we try to make them work, and the reason why it didn't damage me or take me out of it, along with the obvious fan service of the Enterprise D showing up, was the fact that Terry made the Borg scary again. The implications of this technology, because here's what I got out of it watching it, since I didn't have that knowledge that you did, knocking at the back of my head going, hey, he's just doing Warhammer. Instead, for me, I was able to look at it and go, so basically the implication is if you get dissimilated from the collective, your offspring is screwed. By the time they hit 25, they're joining the collective. Doesn't matter if you go, you get out of the collective, your offspring is still going to die. Oh, and you're going to have a brain aneurysm when you're in your 90s. So that's what it came across to me. And then this was nice because not only did we give a middle finger to Generations by bringing the Enterprise D back, but we also gave the Borg balls again. The balls that Voyager just kind of snipped off fairly easily without even putting in any effort. I mean...
Well, that's my next point that I think is worth arguing about. They had Voyager there, with all of its anti-Borg ass-kickery weapons and upgrades. Why did they not swipe Voyager? It's like, we have this ship with technology that isn't going to exist for another 200 years, that is specifically designed for wiping out Borg, and we have the USS, and we have Old Ironside. Dude, we're taking Old Ironside.
Well, yeah, we have to. I mean, if 7 of 9 was there, she definitely would have been like, guys, this is dumb, we're taking Voyager. Or, take both. Both is good. Or you take hold on, Scogli writes in, says, Geordi said he's got a bunch of drones to do menial work on the background. He does mention that they're loading torpedo base.
That's
okay,
true.
If we have drone crews, then why doesn't everybody pick a starship from the museum and they all go into battle with their own, we get the Enterprise A in there, we get the NX-01 in there, we get Voyager in there, we get that USS New Jersey in there, because even though it's a TOS constitution, it's USS New Jersey. You don't fuck with the New Jersey. So that's why, the reputation precedes itself on that. So you get, you know what I bet on that ship? I bet the decks on that ship are they've got spray paint tagged, and it's probably garbage everywhere throughout the halls, and casino slot machines and what's supposed to be tin forward.
Smokey's still there? Yeah.
But
I think the reason why they didn't do that is that's for the next pandemic, because that's the perfect Zoom captain episode.
I guess.
This is Voyager, this is the D. They're just all of
yeah. And as Corione so aptly pointed out, we've got the D and we've got carpet, if we were talking about something else.
There you go.
Eddie Arndt writes in, I liked Picard, but I've got questions. I thought Juardi was now the new Borg Queen. Also, I thought the Borg joined the Federation in Season 2 of Picard, so did they forget that? And then Skogli says the replicators contaminated with lead. Yeah, probably. Eddie, your question. So I've seen answers already. Apparently the Geordi Borg are from like an alternate timeline or something, and so that doesn't really apply there. Shaw even mentions them in his rant about Picard when he says, no, the real Borg are still out there, and well, here they are. And so, yeah, I mean, for me, I think I'm still holding that time will vindicate this season. I think that what's going to happen is people might feel an inkling to try to go back in the future and rewatch it just to see if it's still, as bad as they remember or if it's better. And because the way that the story, like, that's the only way that I can think that would have convinced a lot of people like Dave Cullen and Nerdrotic to absolutely love it. I mean, that's the only reason it didn't affect me the same was because I don't mind weekly release. But I'm just one guy. I'm not representative of the entire Trek audience. So some people,
like, we're all here, we all have different opinions about the way it was released,
but
different terms too.
I think it's because of the slow release that people weren't able to hold their patience together, and I think that episode 10 will probably explain a lot of things. And I think now that you've actually Corione, it might benefit you, and that you've had a week to accept, okay, we're just doing Warhammer 40K retooled for Star Trek. And you might be going into the episode this week with a little bit more, all right, fine, we'll just see how this finishes and go from there. That's where I'm at. Because,
well, I will agree with you on this, okay? I am very much looking forward to the finale.
Because either way, it's over. But the reason why this feels more like a Two Towers situation and not Return of the King, John, is because apparently Terry did decide to end this with a setup for Star Trek Legacy, which, I mean, if it's just him and Kurtzman just wants his name slapped on it, I mean, even you have to admit, Corione, this is significant improvement from Picard Season 1 and the new Trek you've watched.
No, look, I will 100% agree with that. If, Discovery is a 0 out of 10, and, like, Deep Space Nine is a 10 out of 10. This is a solid, or 11 out of 10. This is like a solid 5. Okay? I will 100% give it that. This is a solid 5. If they were in my university course, they would pass. Right? So, I will give them that. And I think that's a very fair way for me to look at it.
I think that is too, and I'm not going to fight you on it. And I think we'll do battle on this. We'll plan a rewatch in like a year or something, or a few months, and go from there. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. It depends. Like, honestly, this resolution could hit, and I could be like, it just doesn't work for me, and that is still a possibility. I don't know.
Yep. Well, like I said, we'll see, but
I think Skogli and I have made it clear that our expectations for this season going in were already low to begin with, because, I mean, I didn't even watch Season 2 of Picard. I will never watch Season 2 of Picard under any circumstance. And, I mean, I even heard it was getting hard for people to make fun of Season 2. It was so bad.
Well, I will say this. I have been told I watched Season 2 of Picard, but I actually have no memory of doing so. Now, whether that is because I used some sort of dark ritual to wipe my own memory of it, or I just drank a lot, I don't know.
Combination of both, maybe?
Yeah, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but, I don't remember the season, thank the gods.
I didn't watch it, and I only remember the pieces of Season 1 that I had to. Donnie Pearson writes in, at the Writer Brothers, hello, PD, Poyo, H. Marie, Corione, and all. Hope everyone is well. Happy 85th anniversary to Superman. Hey, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Happy 85th anniversary indeed to one of DC's legendary heroes who's just been not great for a while now, but we don't need to get into that because we're talking Star Trek. Eddie Arndt says, thank you. Those answers make it more clear. Yeah, it's a fan service season, but at the same time, it's like, I still would like to see these Citizen Kane, Shakespearean grade versions of Star Trek that exist, because I think a lot of people that still are having an issue with this are forgetting that just because there's episodes of bad Star Trek that you don't like, doesn't mean they're not canon, and it doesn't mean that Trek doesn't have cheese. It's always had cheese, not even just in the original series, but in TNG there was lots of cheese, not just in season 1 and 2, all the way up. All Good Things is a pretty mediocre finale, all things considered. Having gone through TNG a year ago or so, I can't remember exactly H. Marie when we went through it, having gone through it recently, it was like, it was just another episode of TNG. It didn't have that oomph. And I mean, same with Voyager. And that's what I also started to realize. The only Star Trek that's had a proper ending, arguably, is either the motion pictures with episode 6, with, Star Trek 6, or DS9. Enterprise, probably the worst. TOS got canceled, so that one doesn't really count. TNG, like I said, it's pretty and Voyager's ending.
Voyager did have a proper ending. It just wasn't great.
Poorly,
proper
Let's do Borg and time travel. Even though we came across a planet that is like, hyper accelerated through time, and we could just wait here a couple more days until they develop super quantonium, transport warp drive that we could get back to Earth in the blink. Or no, they discover the mushroom drive. That's what they'll do. Wait for them to come up with some kind of...
Dude, wait a week and one of them will turn into a Q and get you home that way. Right?
There's like the trajector tech, all the other aliens nope, Borg and time travel. Two of the weakest plot points of all of Voyager, Borg and time travel. So yeah, I mean, this could be a series finale that sets up for a potentially new awesome series if we get more. That's where I'm at. I'm not demanding Kurtzman's head because I also think that a lot of us have created him to be more of a villain than he actually is. But I'm also not going to watch anything helmed by him because I don't trust him at all. And
look, I here's what I would say about Kurtzman. I just don't think Kurtzman is right for Trek. I think he is capable of producing stuff in other genres that could be acceptable. I just don't think he belongs in the genre.
Ironically enough, Roddenberry wasn't good for Star Trek either. The Roddenberry business model has proven itself failed 3 times. And we're probably going to, go down to negative 12 viewers here in a second for what I just said. But seriously think about it. Logically speaking, no emotions, no, oh, hey, that's my favorite series. I'm not trying to bash it as bad. I'm just going to look at the situation logically. TOS was canceled. With the Roddenberry rules, that show was strictly abiding by. It was canceled. The motion picture flopped. Motion picture is my favorite Star Trek movie, by the way. One of my top 3. My 3 Star Trek films are... I put Beyond up there because it feels like a proper modern TOS film. The Motion Picture and Star Trek 6. Those, I think, are some of the best. Star Trek 2 is a close runner-up for me in a 4th place because it's good characters, but it's also an action movie. Yeah, not really as much Star Trek involved, and Roddenberry hated it because it was an action movie. Continuing. Motion picture, flopped hard at the theater. TOS canceled. TNG was not bringing in the viewership that the network executives wanted, therefore they had to make drastic changes for season 3. Changes that Roddenberry was initially against, but he got overruled on because he was no longer in as much control of the property, thank God, as he had been. So the Roddenberry ideas are good. Absolutely, the new Trek needs to get back to the Roddenberry idealism of tolerance and the fact that we are all 8 billion unique minds and ideas, and we all have a right to exist and have ideas. That needs to be adhered to once again. However, the Roddenberry business model, Star Trek needs the variety. Star Trek needs the action. Star Trek needs the fan service. Star Trek needs the flavors. You aren't required to like all the flavors, though. Like, some people will not give Lower Decks or Prodigy a try simply because they're animated. Okay. Thankfully, it's not like Mandalorian where you have to watch like 5 different shows just for the Mandalorian sequences to know what the hell's going on. But, that's something you want to not get into Star Trek for, that's fine. I walked away from Discovery.
I will say this, though. If you do not watch the original Trek animated series, there isn't too much of it. There's only like a couple of episodes. But if you don't watch it, you really are cheating yourself of a great thing.
TAS,
it really was.
Yeah, totally agree.
TAS was, it's a diamond in the rough.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Donnie Pearson says, I too got the Eagle Moss Enterprise D. This is actually a Hot Wheels version that they ran for a limited time in 2009 after the JJ movie, the first JJ movie came out. Donnie Pearson also says, despite the breaking Star Trek news of Section 31 movie, I'm still in favor of Legacy. Yeah, I'm right there with you. And also continues, Beyond is my number 1 Kelvin timeline movie. Agree. TMP is my number 2 TOS movie and number 3 overall Star Trek movie. First Contact is my number 1 TNG movie and second overall Star Trek movie. That's a little bit more confusing, but I appreciate where you're coming from. And yeah, I mean, there's elements of First Contact I like. It's just, you know, the B plan was, oh no, our invasion of Earth has failed in the 24th century. What do we do? Let's go back in time and assimilate them. Duh. No. My explanation, of course, is that time travel was the original plot. They just wanted the whole, you know, fight to disrupt the ability to, you know, observe and monitor the timeline properly. But that's a headcanon explanation. That's not actually on screen. Therefore, First Contact is still eh.
Personally, my favorite Star Trek movie is 6.
No wonder you liked my book.
Yeah. But you wouldn't believe for the reason why. There is one line in 6 that makes it for me. Don't wait for the translator. Answer now. And if you remember your history in the Cuban Missile Crisis, you'll know why. Right? On top of that, it actually felt like a cruiser versus submarine battle.
Yeah. Donnie Pearson says that I believe TS is for everyone. You know, they got to keep the original version available, but if they wanted to just slap an updated animation with the original plot lines and the original voices, I'm not going to say no to that, because then it means getting those stories to an audience that just doesn't have the patience for the, you know, static shot, same shot of the Enterprise, or sorry, let me get it right this time. The same static shot over and over. Oh, it turned around? No, actually, we just flipped it. But if you won't notice if you don't look fast enough.
Is it gonna get the corner? Is it going to get the corner? Pam said she saw it hit the corner, but she was the only one in the room at the time. So.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Kinda. But yeah, we're going to see how this ends. I think that this is basically a TNG version of the first 6 movies, if you really want to think about a lot of it in the end. And I think time will vindicate it, and it's just, it is what it is. I'm not really sure that it made a difference in Kurtzman extending his contract, because while people are making that claim, he still hasn't come out in support, or he hasn't said anything on Picard Season 3, one way or the other. And like I've been saying, on this show, we're still going to call out the bad Star Trek when it's bad. Yeah. And we're not going to waste time with Star Trek we don't want to. We've already said, if Kurtzman is showrunner, I'm out. I'm not going to watch it. I don't, unless we're going to make fun of it, you're not getting a serious view from us at that point. And so, like I said, whereas if we get more Terry Trek, if we get Cameron Pasha Star Trek or Galaxy Quest, I mean, we'll be on board and there for that. Hopefully.
Are you kidding? I will be like sliding into his DMs, pleading with him to be sitting in the writer's room.
And I'm going to let you speak on my behalf on that, because I don't want to overwhelm him. My voice is giving out already. I'm so excited for Star Trek. So yeah, I think we'll just, let's see. We are over an hour into our broadcast time, and we still got Master and Commander to get to at the end. So let's go ahead.
Let's move forward, boys and girls.
Slug it out with another Mandalorian sequence. All right, so quick non-spoiler reaction. Where the hell was this show since episode 1? What? That's all I got. Go ahead, Corion. I have spoken.
Nice. Look, I really am loving this season. I know a lot of people may not see exactly where things are going, but I'm actually loving it. I am loving the idea of us following Din's people and getting a wider view of this section of the galaxy that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise, right? This is a section of the galaxy that has very few Jedi-type stories going on here. It's a section of the galaxy that talks to me more about let's follow a warrior culture reclaiming their home, right? and reclaiming what it means to be them. And that is a powerful story to me. And I love it. I am, look, we knew that you put Katie Sackhoff on a series, she's going to steal at least a good section of it. Because let's be honest, she is the most manly man in all of science fiction. Okay? She was when she was Starbuck. She had the biggest balls on that damn ship. And, finding out that those balls happen to be made of Beskar has just been fantastic. Right? And she is playing...
So to clarify, you're liking it because you are also a Sackhoff fan.
I would say that what I'm liking is that they took a character that could have very easily been girl boss character, and they are characterizing her as indecisive, worried that she's making the wrong decisions, worried about her past, that she is a leader who is also self-conscious about her decisions and realizes the ramifications of her actions. It would have been very easy for her to be playing this character as, I know exactly what I am doing, I am balls to the wall, what do you hear? Nothing but the rain. But instead she's going, if I screw this up, there will be no Mandalorians left. If I screw this up, I doom my people, and I am getting a second chance at something I never thought I would. That is a very powerful character arc. And the fact that the main character has recognized that, and we are seeing what I think is going to be the last chapter of her story, is fantastic. I love that we are getting more Mandalorians on screen right now, that we're seeing Mandalorians doing, hashtag just Mandalorian things. And honestly, if the end, 5-10 minutes of this episode did not catch your heartstrings just a little, I don't think you have a soul. Okay? That's my spoiler-free version of this. There's so much to unpack that happened in this episode, though.
Go ahead, John.
I really like the way you put that, Corian, about just forgot her name. The Katie's character. The way I feel like this is the part that like every competent critic of modern like Mary Sue characters is like, this is what we've all been asking for, because like she is very much girl boss. Every time they acknowledge that she's the war chief or like the hunt chief, whatever, like the war party chief, in that time she never falters, she never stutters, she never even questions anything she says, and she's ready to stare down anybody who would challenge her. But then the episodes each take time where she has a moment with her confidant, Din Djarin, and they talk. They just have a moment of honesty. And rather than Din being like, no, dude, you got this, girl, you're the best. Instead, he's like, no, I've seen you do your job. And that's like the one thing that she needed to hear, was like somebody who's stoic tell her, you're going. And she, like, that was the reason she spoke. Like, it wasn't this like, let me give a speech about my come up. It was like, I'm nervous.
Let's just keep it to, not
really
spoiler
like
overview. Okay.
Well, so I really like that. That's the way they've been doing this character, and I agree. Like with Corian, that like if that the end didn't tug your heartstrings, you're soulless. But also like that's why I'm so mad at this episode.
H. Marie, what did you think of this episode of Mandalorian?
I'm trying to love it, but I still am having a really hard time. It's just not keeping my attention as much as I had hoped.
Alright, and with that, we have entered the spoiler zone. Yeah, like, I hear what you're saying, Corian, and it's just, it seems that we're kind of on opposite ends. Like I can see the good in Picard, and it's just not quite sticking it for you yet, and I can see, the potential good in Mando, but the execution's just super sloppy.
And
I mean,
you know
we've
what?
already dropped, the big D in carpet, so I might as well just say, not in a fun seconds kind of way either. So it's like, I can see that the story's there, but that's why I keep getting angry when episode 4, same thing. It's like, okay, we finally found our footing, and we just lost it again. And now we're about episode 8, tonight is 8. Episode 7, and it's like, where was this show that we could have literally chopped out like 6 hours of this season already and still had the story that you're talking about? And so what I think the biggest problem is, though, too, is with it being current era, is people are mistaking this for another Mary Sue situation, and it's not. Bo-Katan is established very thoroughly in both the Clone Wars and in Rebels. And yes, she originally starts as the villain, and eventually this is her, redemption of a redemption situation. She is not perfect at all. She knows that she messed up. But the other thing is, people are wanting Mandalorian to lead the Mandalorians. Guys, that's not his character. He's not a leader like that. He could at most have a posse of like 5 or 6 fellow lone wolf types. He is a lone wolf,
He's Wick who got recommunicated.
This is like if we elected Reacher mayor. Like, that's not gonna it's not gonna work. He's gonna resign right away. It's because Bo-Katan is that type of, reestablishing those type of traditions. That's why Armorer Mandalorian appointed her to be the one to try to bring people together, because she is capable of embracing the tradition, and she did keep it with the tradition all the way up until she was said, you know what, you've proven yourself, we need the Mandalorians back together, this is what we're gonna do. And yeah, Din wants to restore the Mandalorians, then he probably wants to get another Razor Crest and be back on his way back to the Mandalorian season 1 shit that we've been wanting this whole time but haven't actually gotten. So,
well, he's a warrior. Like, his whole thing is, I'm gonna be a warrior the way that I've been trained my entire life to be. But also, it'd be nice to have a home base, and that's where I really see this season is like honestly, it is that idea of what do warriors do when they need to build a castle, and we're really seeing that. Like, it is kind of boring, but in terms of like I like what Corion said. This is like the Mandalorians. This is who they are. If anything, this is like the break before the battle, and that's really what this episode was, but with an ambush to start the battle. So they got crippled at the knees right at the jump, which I think is fun because I didn't see that twist coming. I thought the Mandos beat them to Mandalore. And that was like, that's the twist that did me so dirty personally, was like, oh man.
The fact that he had his hidden base on Mando the whole time. Yeah, was, I was very impressed with that turn of events as well. Real quick, Eddie Arndt writes in, this episode of Mando definitely was the best so far. Unfortunately, that might not be saying much with how this season has been. Much better though. Exactly right there with you, Eddie. That's pretty much how I feel. I'm gonna watch the end, and then I think what is actually gonna need to happen is Disney's going to need to have a look in the mirror, and they're going to need to readjust how the Mandalorian story plays out and figure out a streaming, put in like a special Mandalorian lore stuff, so that way we can have like season 1 and 2, and then those episodes lifted from Book of Boba Fett to tie in, and then like maybe 2 or 3 episodes from this season total, because honestly, there's a lot of fat that can be trimmed from this one.
The nice thing is Disney already has been doing that. Like, if you actually check out their channel, their streaming channel, it's actually one of the more, like, if you look at their Marvel side, the way they cut and chop that, and same with their Star Wars side, like, they cut and chop it in such, like I've been going back every once in a while and just binging a couple based on their channel recommendations. So, like, Disney, you've done it before, you can do it. But also, like, I really do feel like the grossest thing about this season is the episodic release, where every week Kathleen Kennedy drops another horrifying bomb. I honestly cannot think of an episode that's actually been necessarily poorly written, but I can think of every episode.
Episode 6 was pretty rough. Episode 3 was really bad too.
In terms of like a lot of the jokes landed and everything for me. A lot of the this is it is kind of a bounty hunter story. It is kind of a event of the week story, and that's annoying. But then when it came time to do the podcast, like Kathleen Kennedy obliterates Star Wars universe with her celebration and announces a bunch of trash. And it's like, okay, so how did we all feel about Mandalorian? Well, Star Wars is in a dark pit, and Mandalorian is a candle.
Yeah.
And that's how every episode has been. It's like this candle, and it is bright. Like, it is a really solid candle, but also, like, I feel like Kathleen Kennedy is shooting the show in the foot on purpose. Like, all of these announcements are literally timed with the episodes.
Yeah,
It's
there is one
so, like,
elephant.
Disney board of directors. Do you see literally the fruit of the poisonous tree? She is poisoning the tree as she goes, and you're giving her more?
Yeah. Corey, you got a thought?
Like, literally, she is a sore loser, and she's killing a beloved franchise, and you're allowing it for no good reason. She's not a girl boss. She's not Bo-Katan. She is literally every Mary Sue we can think of, an executive assistant promoted to showrunner, and then this is what we get. Like, we've all seen all of the episodes that she's written and all of the shows about women like her. They're not good at their jobs because they didn't deserve it. Like, there are women out there that deserve this position, that actually love Star Wars and could protect the franchise the way it's supposed to be, not necessarily the way any of us would see it protected, because we all have our own definitions of what that looks like. But at the very least,
Yeah.
not bad, here's more to destroy,
Yeah.
and then also ruin the one good thing that's working every week in a row.
Yeah.
Like, she's literally poisoning everything, and you're allowing it. Like,
Yeah.
fiduciary obligations
so-
mean nothing to anyone anymore.
Corey, you had a response?
Yeah, so there was one last piece I wanted to point out to everybody. First, I do think that if you guys have not watched my video Iger's game, to understand what Kathleen Kennedy is doing, you really need to watch that.
Oh, yeah.
But going along with the narrative that I put together, there is a reason why Jon Favreau's character, which is Vizsla, would need to be killed off. If he is about to be made the head of Lucasfilm, he cannot be starring in a Lucasfilm property at the same time. So while a lot of people are taking this as his resignation, I would argue that this is confirmation that he is just going to be too busy to play this character for the next little while. So they had to remove the character. On top of that, he's the only character they could kill off in this episode that would make a bunch of us just curl up into a ball and cry. My wife and I have a joke that we borrow from friends, where if something is really bad, we put it in when something hurts our feelings, we put it in the freezer. And my wife literally, after watching this episode, said, I'm not sure how to put an episode streamed off the internet into the freezer, but that's where this needs to go. Because she was loving where that character was going. He went from like generic opposition to like arguably one of the most likable side characters in this whole thing. And that's why they had to kill him now. Right? They had to kill off the giant chicken right here, right now. Because if they didn't, this would be, the worst. Like, they had to up the stakes. They had to make these guys real. And this was the only way they could do it. It's sad. It hurts. But other than killing Grogu, this was the only other person to go. And I have a feeling I know exactly where Grogu's character is going to wind up going by the end of this.
Yeah. Skogli asked, do you think John killing off his own character with the sequel Red Guards is prophetic? I mean, I guess if you take it from Corione's perspective, sure, in a way. But for me, I think it's more like, I don't think it's prophetic so much as he's explaining what's been going on with this season. And he's basically using an artistic expression to explain how pretty much dead set Kennedy is on making sure her precious failure of a trilogy is preserved in the timeline. Like I said, with the Veil of the Force, Rebels changed everything. And Hannah and I are actually in the middle of a Rebels rewatch, which if you guys aren't watching Rebels, or haven't watched in a while, or have never watched it, even if you haven't watched Clone Wars, you need to watch Rebels. Because a lot of stuff that Mando is talking about and tying in right now is explained in Rebels. And that's why I have hope for Ahsoka, is because of how good Rebels is, and how solid, you know, I think Lucas even did endorse Rebels as though he would accept it as part of what I call Lucas canon.
Clone Wars and Rebels are part of Lucas official canon.
Yeah, for me, official Lucas canon, original trilogy, prequel trilogy, obviously, both Clone Wars versions. I know people say that the original isn't canon, and I'm like, it actually doesn't interfere with the Filoni Clone Wars, believe it or not. At least Volume 1 doesn't.
It's not canon, I guess is the best way to put it, right?
It's worth checking out. KOTOR for me, obviously, SWOTOR, because KOTOR, I believe, is Star Wars fully, properly realized, and what Star Wars could actually be for storytelling. And then Solo and Rogue One. Those are what I consider the Lucas canon, because both Solo and Rogue One do fit in. They don't interfere or change anything. Regardless of how you personally feel about Solo, I love that movie despite the backlash from, people would have a very different opinion on Solo if it had released in December like it was supposed to that year instead of when it did. But it is what it is. My overall point being here, watch Rebels. Because with the Veil of the Force being in play, anything can happen with Ahsoka at this point. And I mean literally anything. Alternate timelines, different changing of stuff. We've heard theories about Ahsoka killing Palpatine as he tries to, jump ahead in time to start the First Order or whatever. There's any number of outcomes that exists right now, and we will see what happens come August. And so we'll see. If Kennedy is out after Indy 5, great, but I'm at the point where I'll believe it when it happens. Until then, it's just continued talk and speculation, which she somehow seems to turn into a win for herself. And unfortunately, that hasn't quite stopped. But
the big thing is the reason I go on my rant about push her out as far as the executives are concerned is because fiduciary obligation. You guys talk about it as the reason why the board exists, why investors matter, and aren't your customers also the investors? The reason you have investors is because your customers keep buying the products that you keep manufacturing, and then have a company that's organized, then be invested in to make more products to be consumed. And your products are literally subpar. And that's the disappointing thing. When we heard Lucasfilm was finally being bought and Star Wars was going to come back to life, this is a zombie. This is the most grotesque version of Star Wars we could have gotten. And the best part about it is a rogue bounty hunter that has 2 characters associated. It's not the Jedi. Luke isn't the thing making the show. Obi-Wan isn't the thing making the show. None of the Sith. Kylo didn't make the show. Rey didn't make the show. Mandalorian, the bounty hunter within the universe that the clones are based off of, that is also nowhere near what Mandalorians are based off of. And that's the show that's killing it. That is literally the one non-dead part of the zombie population that is new Star Wars. And that's really embarrassing. Kathleen Kennedy, if you're gonna keep, thinking you rate, time to earn it. Time to go home.
No. We're beyond.
Do us a service on your way out. At the very least, get it right once. I agree, she doesn't deserve it, but who deserves what is up to God. When it comes to us mortals, just do your best on your way out the door. Don't show your ass.
The reason why.
Take your losing streak and go out with your head held high, because you actually did something good that people are well, it was Kathleen Kennedy, but it finally worked. That I earned that. Don't be I deserve all the credit for Mandalorian season 1 when you don't, because you literally.
She already did that though. That's the problem.
No, I know. Look, I'm not forgiving anything. I'm saying here's how we get to tomorrow, and it's better. regardless of the people that are there with us.
I'm afraid in KK's stance, I disagree.
But I'm saying tomorrow's still coming. Whether we wanted to or not, there's still a tomorrow. And because it's coming, here's a way that it's brighter without a complete overhaul or, you know, like a God level event that changes everything. Instead, like Kathleen Kennedy, just fix it. Just do better.
She's had all this time to do better and she hasn't. Whereas the reason why I'm more harsh on her than I am Kurtzman, for example, is because Kurtzman, as far as we know, has not claimed any credit for the success of Picard Season 3. We have now seen what him not being involved in the production looks like, and there's a clear and defined difference, but he also seems to just be using it to want to do more of his own projects, which, not as big a deal. Kathleen Kennedy is a micromanager to the max. She doesn't know boundaries when it comes to being what her position was supposed to be on this. And because she's gotten her grubby little fingers into everything that was good, that's why Book of Boba Fett was so terrible. That's why this season of Mandalorian has been so terrible. It's why her Star Wars trilogy is so awful. And anything that she has her name attached to is bad, because she doesn't know when to stop. Whereas, like I said, with Kurtzman, we've made a lot of assumptions that Kurtzman was doing the same thing as Kennedy, and I'm starting to look at it and go, I think Kurtzman was just putting the wrong people in position and allowing, you know, the wrong influence to get a hold of him, because he hasn't, like I said, he's not out there campaigning against Picard Season 3. He hasn't said a word positive or negative. He's just pushing out new crap.
I'm not trying to take away from anything that Kathleen Kennedy has done. I am just trying to say, like, we're all humans. We're all capable of growth. We all experience failure, and we all need to grow. And
there's a difference. There's a difference between people with well intentions making the wrong mistakes, which I think could be explained for Kurtzman. Kennedy has gone out of her way to be a piece of shit.
No, and that's fine. But at the same time,
well, no, it's not fine, John. It's not fine. There's a huge difference, because if somebody has okay intentions or made a mistake, that's one thing. Kennedy wasn't making mistakes. She's a horrible person.
I do understand that, but like, it's not our place to judge. Like, judging people is the fastest way to having a bad day for no reason. So, like, out of a place of non-judgment, I don't agree with any of her actions.
Out of a place of non-judgment, I'd say she can go quietly, and that's that.
Yeah, but again, that's the best way to do it, you know, like honorably resign, say goodbye, and just call it quits now.
If she quit tomorrow, I will never speak her name positively or negatively ever again. I will forget who she was.
If she quits tomorrow, I will hold a party, and the likes of which mankind has never known.
But that to me that's tops. Like, that's the best scenario. Then the bottom scenario is the board of directors fully gets behind her, grants her the next 90 years in perpetuity. She's in charge. She is the new Lucas.
Oh, no, they've already started turning on her.
That to me is the absolute worst thing that happens tomorrow. And then the middle thing that happens tomorrow is Kathleen goes home, goes to school, learns her Star Wars, listens to the Comic-Con fans, and starts actually writing good quality. That's the middle. Like,
guys,
I love your heart, little brother. I love your heart, but it's
news.
It's not hard.
Hold on.
To me.
I have news that I can break here first on Writer Brothers. Everybody who's watching the show right now, congratulations! You guys are the very first people to hear this, ladies and gentlemen. Starting next week, 15% of the staff of Lucasfilm is being let go.
Oof.
And there is a very, very good shot, because when that happened at Marvel, the name that we all heard first was Victoria Alonso. If it's going to happen next week, it might be the Toga Party. So be ready for it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good spot to end this on, because I think we're just arguing in circles at this point.
Yeah, let's do some Master and Commander.
Let's talk about one of the greatest movies ever made. So, Saturday, I completed my 30-second lap around the sun, and to celebrate, I decided to give you guys a break from that horrible show, Deep Space Nine, and focus on just one of the absolute greatest films ever made. The IMDb rating gives this a 7.2. We all know IMDb is a load of crap most of the time, so... because they also said Han Solo was in Book of Boba Fett. How did that turn out? Yeah, exactly. Master and Commander. Skogliotin. Oh, I'm a little sad you can't jump on the panel unless you change your mind. Otherwise, he writes in, holy shit, this movie was great. I'd never seen it before. And I was sad Nerdporial Lifeform unfortunately couldn't make it. We do hope that you are doing well if you happen to be watching, and we do miss you on our panel tonight. Because I know you were excited about watching it, and I was excited about you watching it, but oh damn. Master and Commander is absolutely a must-see film, regardless of what genres of movie you prefer. This is, again, one of those situations where if you don't like Westerns, this is the Western I'd make you watch, except it's not a Western. It's a 1800s naval...
Age of Sail.
Huh? Age of Sail.
Age of Sail.
Frickin' just glorious Navy v Navy, tall ship v tall ship combat, cat and mouse outwitting each other back and forth. I mean, in a classic tale of, well, you know, it's not really good versus evil, it's just faction v faction, and we're supposed to root for Jack Aubrey because he's played by Russell Crowe in some of his most brilliant acting that I think he really, because he sells it to me, not as someone who's like super smart and knows all the right answers, but clearly as a gung-ho, kind of Captain Kirk of his age, you know, leader in trying to complete his orders and mission, only to realize that he needed to put the crew in first. Corion is actually sharing some information.
So, for those of you who are unaware, first, did you know Master and Commander is actually based on a series of books by Patrick O'Brien? So, if you like the movie, you may also like the books. And would you like to know who the captain is based on?
Of course.
Thomas Cochrane, the 10th Earl of Dundland. Every one of the tactics that we see Russell Crowe's character use in it actually comes from Thomas's time when he was captaining the Swift. So the nonsense that you've seen on screen actually happened because there was a mad lad captain that actually pulled these stunts off. So I thought you guys might like a little historical relevancy.
Yeah.
And that, you know, if you are interested in how this all went down, it actually did all go down. This guy's an interesting read. He puts the mad lad in Mad Lads. And it was at a time when Britain really needed somebody like that. Because, you know, arguably, he took the lightest, simplest boat in the British Navy and took out one of Spain's biggest ships with outnumbered something like 5-1 and with over twice as many guns as he had. He took the ship. So it's worth checking out if you guys have any historical interest in the movie.
Oh yeah, I mean the historical accuracy is probably somewhere between the Patriot and Band of Brothers as far as where it would score, and of course it's definitely more historical fiction, but it's really amazing to me watching this movie, having actually sailed on modern day naval ships, and just noting like the obvious differences, you know, the crew quarters and whatnot, but then how much is still very much the same. That I could actually watch, especially if you are a sailor, whether you're in the Navy, the Coast Guard, or if you've ever sailed on a United States vessel, even just for fun. It's really cool because then you watch this movie and you're like, oh yeah, no, that's the same. That's how the life is underway. There's just certain things and traditions you just don't quite get away from. But I really love the movie's writing is extremely tight because it doesn't tell you everything that goes on. It also visually gives you hints as to what's going to happen, what's going to change. You know, the fact that Jack gets the inspiration for disguising the ship as a whaler because, oh, the stick bug disguises itself as a stick. Wait a minute. That's a good idea. How am I gonna outmaneuver this other captain? But it's also just the back and forth. But I was watching the last scene when they go in to check on the captain, and he gets the sword from the guy. The acting between Crow and the opposing team, the opposing ship's commanding officer, is so subtle. And yet, if you watch closely, you can see the mannerisms of the captain after he hands him the sword, and he's like, yeah, he bought it. He bought it. Good. Everyone just keep cool. We got this. Situation's under control. And he doesn't find out until he's already sailing away from the boat and goes, so, wait, the doctor was dead? But then who did it? Oh, you clever motherfucker. And it's all those kinds of scenes, the back and forth, the fact that he realizes, oh, you know what? I should have gone to land that first time because now I'm down another crewman and my doctor's taking a bullet. And of course, he ends up being rewarded for making his recompense to the crew by his doctor friend going, oh, crap, they're still here. And we need to get back to our ship. Okay, I have to leave all my animals behind. It's just a really great character-driven film and just a lot of plot points that just, if you're a Star Trek fan, you'll definitely enjoy this. And I also realized, as a result of us doing this movie this week, we've kind of watched a reverse Generations take place.
Yeah.
First we saw the Enterprise D get, resurrected. And then we ended the week with a movie about sailing vessels, which the Enterprise D opens up with Worf's promotion ceremony on a holodeck of the HMS Enterprise.
Yeah.
Okay. All of that to me, my biggest thing about this movie is it is the greatest example of why everything took so long, and also why I'm frustrated why everything now is also taking so long. Like, the reason they landed on this ship and this doctor was able to document all of these very interesting finds and these like bizarre creatures that had never been seen before was because they needed to dock the ship because they were dying and taking on water and needed to fix some things and give some people some leave, right? But then the reason
the doctor had just taken a bullet too from a dumbass Marine.
Exactly. But then also the doctor gets all of this glorious scientific information and all of these species that he can take with him to take to whatever version of the college that he wants to take him to is. And his crippledness requires him to leave it all behind, and nobody.
Not all of it. They still got away with the Galapagos tortoise, which, by the way, watching this movie, I was like, if I have kids, I think I want to get a Galapagos tortoise to pass down several generations. I mean, how cool would that be? That this is P.D. York's tortoise from 150 years ago.
Yeah, well, but to me, again, that's even more to it. Is like
that's a real legacy, in my opinion.
Had never been touched and never been seen, and the only reason that they were touched, seen, or captured, even if it was brief or in perpetuity, it still was like because the ship needed to land and that was the only land nearby. And that, like, to me is like, oh, if we had all just stopped fighting and actually explored,
we'd explored the first time,
solved a lot more science and actually like solved a lot more issues a lot faster. And the reason we're still stuck is because we keep the exact same thing that started the whole fight, was two nations that don't recognize the other's authority, and the people living completely absent of those nations still adhering to those nations' feelings. And rather than being like, oh, look, a Spanish vessel that could kill me. Oh, look, a British vessel that could kill me. Let's wave and not shoot each other. Instead, they're like, no, it's our duty to shoot each other. It's our mission to kill each other. Rather than being like, yeah, technically, but I won't say anything if they don't.
Oh, go ahead, carry on.
By the way, fun fact about the Galapagos tortoise. You know that they tried to bring one back to Britain 5 times, and every time it failed. Do you know why? It turns out Galapagos tortoises are actually really tasty.
Of course.
You would have to say, do not eat on the cage.
Oh, but they take forever to spawn more, though. Ugh, and it's like...
I thought, being a Navy individual, you would exceptionally appreciate that one.
Oh, actually, you want to know the thing that I was pissed about, though? Was seeing the livestock on board. That's one thing that I was like, hey, wait a minute. Why do we not have live chickens giving us fresh eggs daily? Instead, we store eggs in the fridge, and whereas I think having some livestock on board for that kind of stuff does have a certain wisdom to it, especially since chickens can be happy living in a cage the whole time. I mean, it's... yeah, that was one thing. I was like, I don't think modern technology has really surpassed the need to have live chickens underway on ships. Just saying.
Okay, but knowing
technically it has if they were doing airdrops of eggs.
No, but knowing some enlisted people, there would be cockfighting on the ship.
Well, when you're in international waters and
why there
captains
is
asleep.
chickens on the ships.
Yeah.
There was for a long time. The reason they were removed is because people were making them kill each other.
Which, you should never do with your female hens. That's just stupid.
It's a waste of a lot of good eggs.
Yeah, no, and then some ships, they like to have their underweight dogs, and I mean, dogs and chickens don't always get along.
That's not a good math.
I think it's called Wolf in the Hen House.
Even golden retrievers go nuts for chickens. It's weird.
Oh, everybody, dude, we go nuts for chickens.
That's true. That's true.
Honestly, the cockfighting was not my first thought. My thought was one of the Marines turned coasties just kept breaking their necks for fun.
Probably. No, this is definitely a movie. Yeah, Donnie Pearson said, I've seen bits of that movie before. I love the score as well. Yeah, the score is fantastic, but you definitely have got to watch this film if you haven't yet. Skoglioten writes in, the little lord that lost his arm was the best. What a champ. Pick up that cannon. We've got to sink her. We have to board her. Follow me. Jumps into the ship and blasts somebody. Yeah, I mean, he really... That is truly probably one of the most inspirational characters in the movie, really, because he ends up losing his good arm and has to learn to use his left, and then he's given command of the ship during its most important battle, and even still he ends up boarding anyway because he realizes, oh wait, our guys need help. We've got to secure this.
Doesn't he grab a blunderbuss?
No, he just has a pistol.
Oh, okay.
I will say this though.
I loved the Pirates of the Caribbean 3 parody of that scene when Bam Bam grabs a blunderbuss on his way out and blasts himself back into the hole under the bathhouse.
Which doesn't even make any sense, because if that was the case, the powder required to even blow him back would still blow even me or Corione back.
Oh yeah. I will say this though. With that kid, I was sitting there when I was watching that, and all I could think is, man, adrenaline's a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
I'm gonna save the day, and well, he did.
Yeah,
his arm. Like even today, like with my current situation, if there was something going on my boat, I would still be like, guys, I'm gonna man the steering wheel. I want to help, but I will be a detriment. And that kid's like, I don't have an arm. I don't care. I'm going.
He wanted to go on the boarding at first, and then he was told no, and then he was like, he goes to the captain, like, hey, I want to board. It's like, someone's got to stay and be in command of the ship. And so of course, when he's left in command of the ship, what does he do? He goes, well, I'm in command. I'm gonna board now. Loopholes. Gotta love those command loopholes.
That to me is
hey, why did you jump on the ship? I was in command. You said I was in command. I can do it. I do whatever I want. I'm in command.
Hey, don't question the commander.
Are you questioning my authority, Captain? When I was captain of the ship?
Look at me. I'm
you,
the captain now.
You made me captain now. Yeah, you did this.
It was definitely the pistol flip because he was missing a hand.
Yeah. God. Oh, jeez.
But no, to me, I think that is like the ultimate representation of children. Like, we treat a lot of children like they are these fragile, innocent things that never want to do danger unless they're put in a dangerous situation where they think it's okay. But this child is actually like the best representation because every adult in his life told him, we need you to stay back. You don't deserve this. Just stay. And he was like, I don't care. I'm a reckless teenager. I'm going to war. And he did. And we admire that. And that was the same thing that happened in World War I, World War II, the Civil War, Revolutionary War. Like, kids have been signing up to go to war. And to me, I think the way this movie represented it was like, no, always be the captain that says, no, kid, no. Don't. But when the kid does it and wins, high five him. Like, well done, dude. You saved us. You did what needed to be done. And unfortunately, it was put on your shoulders, but you saved us. And they honor him. But at the same time, all of them would have rather taken his place. All of them did take his place until he was the last one to go. But they still gave him the respect of an adult when he did the adult thing. And I think a lot of kids do the adult thing often. And then we go, hey, kid, stop trying to be an adult. And it's like, no, say thanks.
Well,
the kid got it.
Hold on. Let me get Skogley's comment and then I'll respond. Skogley says, as a commander, he made a decision. He's seen what needed to be done and rallied the troops behind him like a beast. I completely agree. And to what John's saying is yes and no. I agree in the sense that if a kid can handle a situation, and we definitely should try to empower our youth to be able to stand their ground. At the same time, don't be in a hurry to pay bills, son. Enjoy your childhood while you got it and relax.
Although I'd argue that he paid that bill when he lost his arm.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Okay, I have 3 messages here. The first one was a message to the parents. Parents, when your kids do adult things, recognize it as mature, but then tell them to chill. That's the second message. Children, chill.
I like that.
Party, but also be nice. And number 3, government. If somebody gives you their limb, give them a castle. Like, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
It's a limb for a castle.
Here's a piece of metal called the Purple Heart. You can get it on your license and you can put it on your plate and people will know you gave a limb for your country. Oh, by the way, you're like $80,000 in credit card debt. Thanks for your service, bitch.
And you can't get disabled parking with that Purple Heart pass. But
hell no. No, you still got 3 working limbs. No, you don't need no disability. Take a walk. You're a vet. You can handle it.
Damn, sons, I have a disability parking pass.
Oh, I just mean that Purple Heart doesn't count as...
Canada's like America, but disabled, so that doesn't surprise me. Shots fired!
To me, it's more a question of, like, that Purple Heart should count automatically as disabled. Like, even if you only got a Purple Heart for a bullet wound and you can walk still, like, you did enough. You can park in the handicap spot.
And I know we joke, but, I mean, speaking of mentally handicapped, just look who occupies the White House, allegedly. Anyway, we don't need to get into that. See, hello, Pot. My name's Kettle.
Let's save that one for the pub, shall we?
No, all of America's disabled. Even the southern part. So... No, it's a great movie, and it's about duty, and it's actually the reason that they were given the orders to go after the Acheron was because it was terrorizing private boats. Ships. That was the whole point of they were attacking civilian vessels and harassing whalers and shit, as we saw because they harassed a whaler and got bit in the ass.
Well, British whalers. Like, that's the part that, like, we all gloss over because they were speaking English in the film, but, like, it was literally the Spanish Empire and the British Empire were sisters against each other. Like, they were this same in aggression. And honestly, I'm pretty sure they were at one point literally sibling rivalry. Like, half of their royalty was British and half of the British royalty was Spanish. So,
it's
like,
all in the family.
Rivalry causing all of these. Right. But to me, I think, if anybody hasn't seen the film, the way I describe this film is it is everything you want out of a pirate movie without any of the, like, constantly reminding everyone that they're pirates.
Because if you like Black Sails, you got to watch this movie. That's all I'll say. And vice versa. If you like this movie, check out Black Sails. Takes place almost 100 years prior.
This is exactly what the privateers did. This is where pirates came from. Pirates were just like, all right, now we...
This is post-piracy. This is near the tail end. It's 1805. You're thinking of 1715.
Right. So this is more like mercenaries versus privateers, which is still the same overall concept. They were paid by a country to service other countrymen. Both countrymen had no need to take care of the other country's countrymen.
Yep.
So like if this ship, like I guarantee you, if this ship had come across a Spanish whaling ship, there would have been no Spanish whaling ship. And the same thing with the Spanish, like that was the proof of this movie. Is that's why I say it's the best pirate movie of all time in terms of like historical accuracy, because all sailing is piracy technically. Like as soon as the captain is in charge, they have the right to marry people. They have the right of any governor or state or nation. And so like when you're captaining a ship, like be the good captain. Don't sink the whaling ship regardless of whether or not they speak your language. But if you're pretty sure that they're hauling coke, you're a captain of a ship. Stop the coke.
Okay,
or fentanyl. Mostly the fentanyl. Don't really care about the coke, but the fentanyl.
But hear me out on this. Okay, you're the captain of a British ship. Okay, hear me out on this. Someone is paying you probably what your entire village at home makes. If you bring one of these ships back, the prize money for taking is.
So I think what Corion is saying is that what
I was saying is you're the captain of a British ship, and the amount of prize money you make for bringing in one of these ships is probably more money than the village you're from makes in a year.
Right. So there's different circumstances involved too.
Let's do some real life pirate extortion. I have a Spanish friend who's the captain of a Spanish ship. I'm a British captain. Why don't I take their ship this weekend? They take my ship next weekend, and we keep trading until we make all the money. Like, it's all a scam. War has always been a racket. It never wasn't. This is proof. Like, even when the people are literally the captains of their own ship, the king of their own island, they still respect rules that were just constantly and consistently reiterated to them, rather than being independent individuals and being like, yeah, I could get that prize money. And I could also,
like I said,
humans to do it.
You got to look at the timeline of where things are in the world, though, like I said, because the piracy stuff had already worn its way out, and that's what eventually led to 1776. But we are in the early infancy stages of the post 1776 world. So civilization is coming for everybody, and that's what's represented by what you see. That's why I said it's not really good guys versus bad guys. It's a faction versus another faction. And so
and that's what I'm saying is it. But to me, it's like that's what it's always been.
Yeah.
Like
so,
there are more generals in charge.
Real quick, Squogly writes in and says, I really like the scene where he admits to his friend that he has exceeded his orders. Yes, that is what I love about this movie, is we see a commanding officer who owns his mistakes and then tries to afford proper recompense. That's why they go ashore after the doctor's been shot, not just because, okay, you can finally go get your animals, but also it's the only way we can safely operate. You can operate on yourself, and I should have done this when I had the chance the first time. It was a mistake to get up and go after him thinking he was headed back towards the Atlantic. And sure enough, he wasn't headed back towards the Atlantic. He was waiting there the whole time. So, yeah, it's like I said, it's just a well-written movie overall. It is a solid 7 in my book, from story to characters to just everything. You get a feel for the divide between enlisted and officers. I mean, that is still very much the case in the armed forces, though I think, as John's kind of saying, a lot of those concepts are probably outdated, especially now. But unfortunately, that's going to be a conversation for another time.
Yeah. I don't think they're outdated. I just think they're disorganized.
They just need to be there needs to be more integration between officers and enlisted at the lower ranks, because it's not really a problem until things start to get higher up. But even then, the relationships between the higher up enlisted and officers are pretty much there's really not a lot of difference there. It's all a freaking game. Anyway, want to thank Skoglioten for participating, pseudo-panelist, with your comments. That's awesome. Gave us good stuff to talk about. Donnie Pearson, we always enjoy seeing you here. Great to hang out with you. Like I said, please send us an email at thewriterbrothers@gmail.com. Eddie Arndt also dropped by. Thank you as well. And I think that's everyone who decided to make their presence known. As to everyone else who's listening and watching, we appreciate your all's continued support of our show. To our podcast listeners, sorry we fell behind again. Real life's just being real life. It happens. But we're going to get back to our release schedule and everything else. And of course, if there's any feedback or suggestions, whether it's content you guys want to see us review, after next week, we do have kind of a bit of an open schedule before I have to start picking things again, or John has to help pick things. So if there's something you'd like to see us, whether it's a book, movie, or a show, or something you think we'd enjoy or think we need to talk about, send us an email, thewriterbrothers@gmail.com. That's the best way to get a hold of us. Otherwise,
who was it that gave us the last book we read?
That was Arende.
Yeah. We miss you. We love you. And thanks for the last book. So
that was a great suggestion. Absolutely. I still think about that book from day to day, honestly. That was definitely a good one I might even have to listen to it again in a couple of months. Otherwise, next week, we got Mando finale, we got Picard finale, and we're going to try and get back to our Deep Space Nine. And, of course, we got Strange New Worlds coming up in June, and I don't know when Severance Season 2 is supposed to hit. That was our first show that we did, so... last quick... Huh?
Well, I was going to suggest maybe we should take a look at Batman, The Doom That Came to Gotham.
I think we've been talking about that. That's the animated one / the comic book we want to look at.
Yeah.
I think we'll definitely talk about that more offline, but I'm certainly not opposed to it. Thanks all again for watching, whether you're on the repeat or whether the live. We appreciate it. I'm Peter York with the Writer Brothers. We'll see you next week. This has been a presentation of the Writer Brothers Tuesday Night Live Show. The Writer Brothers, restoring respect in a discourse.